All right, we are live. Was trying to get Instagram live uh set up as well, but don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that right now. So I'll have to get that all uh squared away. But hope you guys are having a great week so far. Hope you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl if you watched it. Was really cool. I did not know and did not understand that the acts or the halftime show on the Super Bowl literally didn't get paid. They dump a bunch of money into the show itself, but in order for the obviously act to go on, they have to take that money and then they use that money to pay the all the dancers and all the actors and all that stuff, which is crazy. But then I saw like some other reports of people just making massive amounts of money, mostly due to the fact that their brand grows. So it was like, okay, that's like a takeaway for me from like my personal branding mind. Of course, obviously the commercials and all those things, but the fact that the halftime show itself produced no money for Usher on the front end, but he invested obviously even some of his own money, I heard, in order to like blow it up. So then that way he was ultimately able to capture and do more with those things, was just a key takeaway for me. But really excited to come and train you all here today. I am training from my house. Adam McChesney for president. Thanks, Adam Neese. Appreciate that, man. I'm training from my house today. Actually, feeling a little bit under the weather. Was supposed to be in South Carolina this week for the win rate Q1 event, but feeling a little bit under the weather and ultimately just decided to stay home. So I am doing this from my house where I'm working at today. We're going to be talking about some consistency in social media posting. I do have some updates for you, though, before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything. So update number one is we are getting ready to cross that 1,000 member mark in the free Builders of Authority group. So if you haven't joined that group yet, definitely make sure you do that. And as of the announcement of literally this live right here, for the next 10 people that hop into our Builders of Authority mastermind group, you're going to get a 50% lifetime discount. And so typically we charge $500 a month or $5,000 for the year. You're actually going to get that for $250 a month or $2,500 for a year. I already sent it out to people that were already messaging me right before it, both of which signed up. So we have 8 spots left as I'm doing this. So if you've been on the fence about Builders of Authority for one reason or another, this is the perfect time to hop in at $250 a month or $2,500 for a year. It'll be good for the next 8 people. Again, we're doing 10 overall, and then it's going to go back up. So if you have any questions, if you're interested, all those things, let me know. You get 3 weekly calls. So we have calls at 2 p.m. Central every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All of those calls are recorded in our Facebook group, which you have private access to, which there's a little over 20 of us right now. You also get a Google Drive with all the past access stuff, any resource stuff that we go over. And then you get a 45-minute onboarding call with myself. We're also going to be launching finally this month the Builders of Authority course, which is going to kind of talk a lot about the things that I've been going over and doing, and you're going to get access to that. Right now, we're selling it for $9.99 pre-sale. So it's an incredible value at $250 for a month. So month to month, or $2,500 for the year, you get 2 months free. So make sure you hop on that. Again, only the next couple of people are going to get access to that special pricing. You'll see that link here in the video. But also, if you have any questions, things like that, just shoot me a message. The next thing that we'll talk about real quick, again, I know I've been talking about it a lot, is we are 1 month away from Builders of Authority Live on March 13th. Over 50% sold already, which is awesome. Really trying to fill up the rest of those seats. Only got 4 or 5 VIP tickets actually left. So that one is obviously the most popular one because it includes the day of event. It includes a VIP ticket to the suite at the Blues game, which is going to be freaking awesome and incredible. And then we're doing like a little day after event for 3 hours with the speakers where you, as the guest, can come back and just pick anybody's brain that you ultimately want to and just learn a little bit more about whatever specifically we're talking about, whether it's digital marketing, personal branding, podcasting, etc. You'll have some one-on-one time with the speakers. So a ton of value there. General admission ticket is $295. VIP ticket is $795. If for whatever reason you just want to do general admission and the day after, that's $495. Had a couple people do that. So again, would love so many of you all that have been supporting me and supporting this mission of Builders Authority. Would love to have you in attendance at that event. We're a month away. Awesome. And just so you know, I will be following up with a lot of you that said that you were interested. That's really what I'm focused on right now. So in today's training, which is kind of like step number 2 in the 7-step PDF of how I built $1 million company, specifically on the backing of personal branding, is we're going to talk about consistency in social media. And so consistency in social media really comes down to like 2 different key aspects. It comes down to like the overall pieces of content. And then within the pieces of content, of course, you have like different attributes of quality. You have the attributes of just written posts, short form versus long form. You have reels. You have all of those different like subsets of that. And then platforms in and of itself is like pretty simple, but you have, Facebook, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have LinkedIn, TikTok, all of those individual things. And so where most people, I would say, go wrong with this specific aspect is they don't give these things enough time. They might not give like personal branding or social media in general enough time in order to like truly take off and continue to rise and continue to like stack momentum. And if you guys have any questions throughout this, guys and gals, just feel free to put those in the comments. I will put them on the screen and then answer them here in real time. And then we'll leave a couple minutes here at the end to just kind of go through those if there are any. The next aspect is that they expect all this stuff is like, hey, if I make 10 posts in a week, what is that going to do for my business? So I make 10 posts and people expect to make $10,000 from 10 posts. Unfortunately, like there is not a direct correlation between making posts and selling or growing your business. It is a compounded effect of showing up, doing the work each and every single day. So like I post consistently on Facebook as an example, twice a day, every single day at 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and twice on the weekends. And then I'll always add in, reels and shorts from there. I'll add in, a live video a week. I do a lot of different aspects on there, but it's the compounding effect that I've been doing this now for 3.5 years. And then I added LinkedIn, then I added Instagram, then I added TikTok, then I added YouTube, then I started a podcast, and people literally will see me on all these different platforms. And so Facebook, for a lot of us, if you're watching this on Facebook, which I know many of you are, like, well, Facebook is kind of like my baby. It's the thing that's like really growing. I understand the algorithm. It's where I spend the most time. That's great. But a lot of people also spend time on some of those other platforms, and everybody buys differently. And it usually takes about 8 touches or 8 points where they see your brand, your company brand, etc., for them to ultimately buy something from you, or at least trust you enough to say, hey, if I were in a position to buy, I would buy. And so that's not always 8 times on a specific platform. That could be offline stuff too. That could be them hearing from somebody else that they know, like, and trust that, hey, Adam is the guy for personal branding, digital marketing, etc. It's not a one-trick pony. So a lot of us, when we're getting started, we're like, I want to master one platform, and then I want to add in all of the other stuff as well. And there's not a right or a wrong way to do it. For the first 6 months, all I did was Facebook. I got things going really, really well and knew that Facebook was kind of going to be the catalyst for what I was ultimately going to do. But I also understood that there was going to be basically a cap out point where I needed to bring in other stuff for one reason or another. I wanted to test out different algorithms. And so one of our focuses right now is actually understanding how each algorithm works, similar to how I understand and have a pretty good footprint in stronghold on Facebook. Now there's 5 or 6 other platforms that we're kind of going through and trying to analyze and understand and all those things, which is its own separate puzzle in and of itself. But if we don't start out with like those foundational things, that this is not an overnight success, that certain posts and the quantity of posts is going to equal X amount of revenue in our business. And that ultimately it's not just going to be one platform that's ultimately going to seal the deal. It doesn't matter what I'm going to talk about here in a second. Your mindset is already wrong about all of this stuff. And so I tell people a lot of times as well, like I closed my first deal that I could directly attribute to somebody saying, "Hey, Adam, you added me on Facebook. I've been following you, and now I'm ready to sign up." It was about that 90-day mark. And so every industry is ultimately going to be different. Some industries you're going to have, like if you're in contracting and you're literally like adding somebody and you're like, "Hey, this is a cool picture of a deck or a pool or a roof that I just did." And somebody's in need of that and they're like ready to go. Or if there's like a storm in roofing, right? And they see that, they're ultimately going to be like, "Okay, I'm just going to go and call Adam." Versus digital marketing is one, a little bit of a commodity, but two, it's also not something that like is a absolute need in certain situations. It's sometimes a want. There's this whole psychological aspect that goes into it too, right? So what we first have to understand about the overall pieces of content is, unless you have hundreds and thousands of followers or even tens of thousands of followers, we have to be willing to put in work and have an open mind to learn. Absolutely. Then each individual post that we do is only going to have probably so much runway and potential. So we can't, like, where some like influencers and celebrities and like big people in respective industries can post once a day or once a week or once a month or whatever, and it worked for them. We ultimately can't do that same thing. As much as I would love to say, "Hey, I just want to post once a day," and ultimately know that I can get out what I would do if I post 3 times a day, that's just not ultimately going to be the situation. So each specific platform needs to have its own cadence of pieces of content. So if I'm going here and I'm taking a look at like Facebook, for example, so the direct correlation for me on Facebook is 2 posts, 1 meme, and like 1 reel right now. That's like daily. So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis. So 2 posts, 1 meme, 1 reel. And then sometimes, like once a week, I'll do a live video. Well, I'm going to be doing a live video every single day for the next 30 days leading up to the event. But the next aspect is what do I do on a weekly basis? So I do that, and that's just on my personal stuff. That doesn't include what I do in the Builders of Authority private group. That doesn't include a lot of other things. So you just have to focus on like getting started with your personal side. But just because I do all of these things, right, on Facebook does not mean I need to always just go over to now LinkedIn, to Instagram, to TikTok and go do those same things. Because what works on Facebook isn't always going to work on those other platforms. Now, when you're just getting started, right? If you're like, "Hey, I can barely do 1 post a day on Facebook, how am I going to go do Instagram? How am I going to go do those other things?" Literally just repurpose the same content and go over to Instagram. But don't feel like you have to go then duplicate everything there. So if I'm going over to Instagram, for example, I might do 1 reel and 1 post a day, right? And the next big thing as well is what I've noticed too, and this is where people get it wrong. And I've been guilty of this as well, is I will literally go take my post that I do on Facebook and I will then copy and paste the same freaking thing, which again is what I'm kind of telling you to do. And I'll go put that on Instagram. And immediately the algorithm can like pick up on those things. And we've kind of known this for a while, but like what you truly need to do is you need to go retype out that post or use the same picture, but type out maybe something shorter, more effective, use hashtags, things like that. Because again, Instagram's a hashtag platform versus Facebook being not so much, right? And then what I do to maximize time and energy is I will do the share from Instagram over to Facebook. So it's like, okay, what have I really added specifically by doing this? All I've really added is essentially 1 extra post, right? Because I'm taking that reel from Instagram, getting it over to Facebook specifically. So those are just ways where you can like get more done by maximizing your time and energy. And of course, like we've already talked about, planning out content and understanding what you want to talk about, and the different types of avenues of how to get there. But when we talk about each of these individual platforms and things like that, they're each their own baby, right? And so if we try to just do one clean swoop and paint it with one clean brush and be like, I'm going to post the same thing on all these different platforms, etc., that's where we get overwhelmed. That's where we struggle. That's where we get burnout because we're like, this crap isn't working. Well, what you're essentially trying to do is you have 6 different platforms, for example, 5 different platforms, 2 different platforms, 3 different platforms. And you're basically going in as if you were a consultant for a business. And you're like, hey, you're a roofing company, you're a digital marketing company, and you're a business financing company. And I'm going to treat you all the exact same way on what you need to do in order to grow. They'd all be like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. We are 3 different companies with 3 different dynamics. Not to mention, if you had a roofing company, you had a roofing company that was just getting started, you had a roofing company that was doing $1 million a year, and then you had a roofing company that was doing $30 million a year. There are going to be some key foundational things that need to happen across all 3 companies. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, the way that they get treated, the way that they do things on a daily basis are so freaking completely different, right? And so that's how you have to think about this stuff as well. And then, oh my gosh, we're going to add in YouTube. So I do 2 long form per week plus 1 like short per day. And again, typically what I'm doing is I'm taking a reel that I would take on Facebook or Instagram and I'm putting it up there on YouTube. But again, with YouTube, you can only use 100 characters on there. So I can't even take that caption from what I'm doing on Instagram or Facebook unless it's under 100 characters and then go duplicate it over there. But the hashtags are important because what people are searching on YouTube is going to be different from what people are searching on Instagram. So if you're struggling, like understanding the consistency of all of this stuff, my recommendation to you would be super, super consistent and really, really try to get to a good, solid place with one platform. Then start to add 2, start to add 3 and all these different things. Because if you're not, you're going to be running in all these different directions and being like, none of this stuff works. But when you do go to some of those other platforms, make it easy on yourself to just get the rhythm behind, okay, I'm going to repurpose some of this content over there. I know it's not going to take off the way that I want it to take off, but that's not the point. The point is the repetition. The point is the consistency. The point is building the discipline, because otherwise you're going to be waiting for the perfect time. You're going to be waiting for the right time. There's never going to be a perfect or a right time. And so you just need to take the action. And then when the time is right, you're like, man, I'm going to go dive in to YouTube. Owen, who's in Apex, who I've been connected to for a while, we literally just bought his YouTube course. Incredible. We're going to be going to his virtual mastermind next month. But Lorna, who's my executive assistant, is diving into that stuff right now. Like, we are getting super, super dialed in on focused on these different algorithms. But for the last 3 years, it's been a lot of repurposing of content, and it's worked because it's just getting us out there where other people are seeing it. Got a question coming in from James. So his question is, what kind of content are you talking about making? And how do you manage content, what has been posted on platforms, to not duplicate and then repeat stuff too often? So I'm going to answer the second question first. So how do you manage what content has been posted? I have a content calendar, and I can shoot you a message after this, James. Let me write down a note. I can send you over my content calendar. But basically what that content calendar does is it will break down the day, it'll break down the type of post, it'll break down the platform and all of those different things. So then that way, ultimately, we're not doing the same stuff on the same platform or continuing to repeat a lot of the same stuff. Now, the other new kind of like aha moment that ultimately that we had was not veering away from necessarily stuff that we're going to be talking about, but breaking that down to each individual platform. So I'll give you a perfect example, James. If we're making a long form YouTube video, like let's just call it 5 to 10 minutes about how to go get more Google reviews for your business, we are going to make that video, get it out to YouTube in the 5 to 10 minute, sphere of the world. And then we are going to then write and transcript that out because it's more of like a step-by-step thing, right? We're going to write and transcript that out and then post that on LinkedIn, because the way that people go to LinkedIn is they're more looking for education, connections, networking, learning, right? And the longer form posts typically hit better, in our opinion, from what we've seen on LinkedIn. Well, then I'm going to take a little bit of a nut and bolt of that, and I'm going to go put a picture up on Facebook. And then I'm going to go and write out specifically like some quick hitting stuff about like the 3 to 5 things you need to know about getting more Google reviews for your business. Because that's typically how people pay attention to what their attention span is, specifically on Facebook. And then I'm going to do something similar over on Instagram. And then I'm going to make a reel. I'm going to take that YouTube video. I'm going to go put it into like a video AI tool, which is what I use to create captions, and then also cut up that 10-minute video and get like 4 or 5 different mini clips. And so then I have the same concept going out on all different platforms, but based on specifically where people are at and how they want to consume content that day, I'm catering specifically to them. Hope that answers your question there. What type of content or what kind of content are you talking about making? So for me, my content is based on my ideal client, which we've kind of talked about before on these lives. My ideal client is an entrepreneur that is looking to level up in both life and business. A lot of them are contractors, service-based business industries, professionals like yourself, James, that are wanting information on specifically how they can be a level up from where they are currently at. So almost 90% of my content has nothing really to do with digital marketing, when 10% of it does, but the 90% is motivational, self-development, just understanding what the day in the life of the entrepreneur is, like the real authentic stuff. And so I would try to figure out specifically who you're trying to go after, who your ideal client is, and figure out what they want to see on each of these platforms. Great question, though. And I'll send you that content calendar after this. So another question. I recently started using OneUp so I can schedule all my content out for a week. Have you utilized something similar? So this is a question I get a lot when it comes to scheduling content. If you're talking about your business page, I don't see any issue with scheduling your content out through a third-party platform like a OneUp. I haven't specifically touched that one, so I can't say for sure. When it comes to your personal page, I highly, highly recommend not doing that if at all possible. I have tried those things in the past, and it's been an algorithm killer. A lot of these platforms now, so if you're on Facebook on the business professional side, you can go schedule out your posts. On Instagram, you can now schedule reels. You can schedule stuff on YouTube. I think it's a shortcut, yes, and it helps you distribute content, yes. But ultimately, I would rather produce less content and cater to the specific algorithm, at least in the mind of, hey, I'm spending time on your platform, than do it the alternative. And with that specifically as well, so I gave this tip, and I've given this tip a lot, but like the more time you spend on a specific platform, the better the algorithm will cater to what you're posting. So if I were to write a Facebook post coming up here shortly, right? And I wanted to, I'll make a post here later today, and I wanted to do this. I'm literally going to type out like test, post, whatever. I'll just do it like this. So I will literally have this written out on my phone, on my computer, etc. And then I'm ultimately going to leave it. I usually leave it for like 15 minutes to 30 minutes to sometimes an hour. And then when I'm getting ready to come back, if I have the time, if all those things, I'm going to come back. And right before I get that post ready to go to like launch it live, I'm going to go make in like a couple of extra tweaks. So like maybe I'll do a couple emojis, whatever. And now I press live, because the algorithms are smart. So the algorithms can literally see and again, this is my experience and what I've been taught, what I've been told is that they will think in their mind that you spent 15, 20, 30 minutes actually writing that post. And I've seen it where I've forgotten to get my post ready for whatever time period it was, and I just go rush it out for whatever reason, even if I already have the content planned, that ultimately doesn't perform as well. And again, there's no exact science behind all this stuff, but when you put a third party tool in place, you ultimately even muddy the waters, I think, a little bit more. Again, in my opinion, I haven't personally used all that stuff, but I would absolutely recommend going and utilizing the platforms in their scheduling tools first, and then everything else after the fact. So I hope that answers your question. Good question. So we're wrapping things up here right now. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop those in the comments here below as well. I hope this was helpful. Definitely think that this was a topic based on a lot of the questions, a lot of the things that I was getting in the group as something that could be of value. So I hope that it was. From there, again, don't forget about this offer here with Builders of Authority and the group mastermind for, I don't know if anybody signed up on this live, but before this live, there was 8 spots left on that reduced offer, bringing everything down to $250 a month or $2,500 for the year. That will definitely not last long. Don't forget about Builders of Authority live. Make sure you get your tickets in. Only a couple of VIP tickets left. So James asks, I'm using socialchamp.io to do my scheduling. I just can't tell when the last time I used a specific piece of content on a platform without manually searching through the posting. But again, I guess that's your point. That's the business page. Maybe this isn't what you're referring to when you mentioned the content calendar. Correct. So I create a content calendar specifically in in Google Sheets. And what I'm doing that is for me and my team to jointly manage the social media. And so we're just able to look at, like, from a bird's eye point of view of, like, what have we been talking about? What was hitting? What was not hitting? So we can go back and do it. I haven't specifically looked at that stuff specific on socialchamp.io. But one thing we have to, and I'll leave with this, one thing we have to remember is that there's different algorithms on the business versus the personal side. So a business specific algorithm, I guess, unless you have like a super sexy widget or product that is like going viral, or you have a viral video, or you have something that's like so different and so unique than anybody else, or you have a ton of followers on social media, which again, this is like the exception to the rule, what I was just talking about. It typically takes about 12 to 18 months of consistently posting organically in order to see your business pages take off. And the reason why? It's because Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms, Meta just as a whole, they want you to spend more money with ads. So they're strategically going to make it harder for you because they want you to default and be like, hey, I'm just going to go boost the post anytime. And they're even starting to do that on the personal side, but it hasn't like wavered the algorithm yet. But literally that's what's happening, right? And so that's where I tell people is like, hey, you can take a lot of these strategies and you can do a lot of these things and it will work on the business side, but it will take longer in order to pay off. And so most people just want to do the business side, but if they would just take advantage of their personal side, you can do that in about 90 days. If you follow this out, like this process, if you follow what we teach in Builders of Authority for 90 straight days, you will absolutely grow your business 100%, because the algorithm itself is easier. It's going to start showing more of your stuff to the right people when they need to see it. And so it breaks down a completely different barrier of walls of really unlocking exponential success with this stuff, because they're two completely different things. So that's just what I'll kind of leave everybody with, is like, that's why the personal branding piece is so crucial. Not to mention the authority that you're building on the personal brand side that's separate from the business. So if you're only the business, right? If you're only the business and all those different things, and then you decide to sell your business, you decide to go do whatever, start a new venture, things like that, well, then you got to go build up the entire new business page, which you need to do anyway. But we don't even have a business social media for Builders of Authority, all stuff that we probably need to do. But like, we're doing all these different things. We have over 20 members in the mastermind. We hit throwing an event for 100 people, all these different things that it was just my authority that I built up on my personal brand that allowed me to go start something new without having to have this long runway of what I had to build up. I literally sold. So for those of you that didn't know, I did digital marketing on the side for 2 years before I went full time with digital marketing in 2020. In 2019, which was like the first full year that I started, I sold $9,000 worth of digital marketing stuff. A lot because I was just building hundreds of websites and doing case studies and things like that. And I didn't need the money. I was a terrible side hustle entrepreneur. We sold $9,000 worth of stuff in Builders of Authority in less than 3 days. So what originally took me a whole year to do, I did in 3 days just a couple of years later because of my personal brand. It had nothing to do with the business. I mean, of course, people were buying what Builders of Authority was, but that's the power of building a personal brand. Whereas if I hid, and I use the word hid, not to do it like negatively, but that's kind of what it is. If I had only built the Ms. Marketing, which was my first agency, Hype Digital stuff, and nobody knew who Adam McChesney was, but I did that stuff all day freaking long. And then I decide, hey, I'm going to go do Builders of Authority. Well, nobody would know what Builders of Authority was. Nobody would know that Adam McChesney was the person behind the stuff that was growing at Hype Digital and all these different things, so that Builders of Authority could grow in the fashion and continue to grow in the fashion of the way in which we're doing it right now. So I'll leave you all with that. Let me know if you need anything. If you want to join the mastermind, let me know. If you want to get your ticket for the event here next month, let me know as well. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you next week.